Matthew Brooks also requested a Minato. Oh boy. Alright. Well, Minato is quite a character. So, as usual, we'll start with character ability. You may generate force or gauge by stealing the top card of your discard pile for 1 force, the top 3 cards for 1 gauge. Templating is a little bit ambiguous here. It does mean any number of times. So, when you are paying a force cost or a gauge cost, you can steal cards to generate force or gauge. 1 card for 1 force, 3 cards for 1 gauge. Note that this does not care about ultras. Ultras are not worth 2 of anything. They're just a card. Alright, sealing is taking a card and removing it from the game. Sort of. It doesn't actually remove it. It puts it in your sealed area. Some characters, including notably Minato, can interact with their sealed area to recur cards. So this is actually not getting rid of cards. It's putting them aside for later. It's also just generating force, basically for free. He can, you know, spend 2 force to retreat, and then seal those 2 cards to spend 2 force to retreat. Or, you know, ditch 4 cards from hand and 4 cards from his discard pile, although not in the same action, to advance 8. It's extraordinarily good. Alright, good ability. Exceed. At the start of each of your turn, seal all cards in your discard pile. That's the important part of this text. Because at the start of each of your turn, seal all cards in your discard pile is what we call action compression. It's doing more things in a smaller amount of turns. So you get to automatically seal a bunch of stuff, which is hugely important because he likes to recur cards from sealed area. So this accelerates his recursion engine so that he's sealing stuff every turn without spending actions on it, which means he can use his action to do something else with those cards. For each card sealed this way, your next attack is +1 power. Alright, cool. Once he's online proper, this means he probably gets like 1 to 3 power per turn if you don't do something about it. And, because of some abilities we'll see later, you know, he can use strikes to actually recur cards from sealed area, sort of. No, sorry, not recur cards from sealed area. To accelerate his recursion engine is what I meant. But, yeah. He uses boost to recur cards from sealed area. That's a very important distinction. Alright. Very good exceed ability. Very good frontside ability. It's kind of a resource monster. Alright. But we won't be able to really evaluate that, or at least we certainly won't be able to call it strong until we can see how his recursion works. Because if he is just stealing stuff and it's gone forever, well, this ability is terrible, right? Like, if he actually never sees those cards again, he's going to shoot himself in the face with this thing. Alright. We have a lot of options for places to start here. Well, I said we should talk about the recursion abilities. So, we'll start with Cabstan. 1-3-5, before spend up to 3 force for each force spent, close 1. So it's a fast dive, right? It hits from starting positions and it's speed 5. After advance 3, okay, that means it actually, you know, deals with projectiles in a very weird way because you don't necessarily have to hit in order to dodge projectiles. It also means that if you hit with it, you can dodge focus, which is interesting, right? Fast cards don't usually beat focus, but this one does. Fast cards aside from cross, because cross beats everything. As an attack, this is fine. It's unremarkable. It's not bad. You know, it's a fast dive, and those are pretty good. If he cares about gauge, this is great. As we'll see, I don't think he really does. But, you know, so it goes. Like, this alone means he doesn't care that much about gauge. Because you can spend 3 force with this thing, and you have a gauge, because you have 3 cards in your discard pile. Alright, one more ride. Instead of drawing at the end of your turn, you may return a card from your sealed area to your hands. So, the intent behind this, at least, I'm not sure if the wording is technically correct here, but the intent is that it is your draw step. Like, instead of drawing from your deck, you may draw from your sealed area, basically. That's important because it means he does still check hand size. I misunderstood this for a long time, because I thought it was replacing your draw step. It's not. Or rather, it is, but not in the way that I thought. You don't skip the hand size check, you still have to deal with that. I consider this very important, because like I said, it tripped me up for a while. Alright, so this, straight up, says each turn that you end without striking, assuming the opponent doesn't strike, you get to pick up a card from your sealed area. That's obviously great. That's actually really, really important, and it makes us evaluate everything else in a little bit of a different light, because he can just go, alright, I have something back. And if he has Cabstan sealed, he can return Cabstans, right? So that even if the opponent strikes, he gets this back and can keep doing it. Yeah, the Minato engine takes more to explain than I'm going to do in this particular segment, but you'll see pieces of it as I mention them because they're important. So Capstand as a boost is probably more important than his ability because it enables his ability to work. I'm going to skip right to the end here. Very neutral. Because this is his other major recursion feature. The Boost Hellraiser. For now, ignore the attack. Both players discard the top 4 cards of the deck. You may return up to 2 cards from your sealed area to your hand. So discarding cards from your deck gives you information about what the opponent has, and stocks your discard pile so that you can seal cards, which is great on both sides, right? Like, that's 1 gauge and 1 force, or 4 force, or that's +4 power. That will get sealed automatically at the start of your next turn. Okay, sealing, like, putting stuff in your discard pile so that you can seal it later, excellent. Returning up to 2 cards from your sealed area to your hands, you know, literally twice as good as this. And if you have both of these in play, you can return 2 and then end your turn and turn 1. So, yeah, that's extraordinarily good. This is also one of the important pieces in the strategic line called Minato, affectionately referred to based on the mill strategy, or mill keyword, I think, in Magic the Gathering, which is the idea of forcing the opponent to run out of cards. Not going to cover that in detail here, but it's interesting because he actually has cards that are designed to help him run the opponent out of cards, which is very unusual in Exceed. Most of the time, people have to work pretty hard to make that happen. Alright, let's look at the attack. 6 gauge. Okay. That's a lot of gauge. Range 1 of 3. Power 10. Okay. That's a lot of power. Speed 3. Alright, so 1 of 3, 10, 3. That's the world's biggest spike. 4 guard. Alright, so at speed 3 with 4 guard, it only loses to, like, dive, right? No, it loses to cross. As a stat line, that's good. It's definitely not a 6 gauge stat line. If there are no cards in your deck and discard pile, this card's gauge cost is reduced to 0. Well, there we go. Right. This is a card that you can play if you are completely out of cards. It might seem a little bit strange that you have a card to use specifically if your deck and discard are empty, because then once you use it, it's gone. But that's not what it's there for. We'll come back to it in a second, but there's a way for him to keep using it over and over. Regardless, the attack, not the important part. It's very obvious that Hellraiser is the primary use case of this card, and it's clearly stronger than One More Ride in that respect. Although it's harder to use, because One More Ride means that you can't stick out because you're drawing from your sealed area instead of drawing from your deck. Hellraiser discards a bunch of cards from your deck, and then you have to draw for end of turn. So it is riskier. But returning 2 from your sealed area is pretty big, so. Alright. Those are his abilities that recur from a sealed area. They are super duper important. They make him function. Here's another type of recursion ability. This transformation, Weight of Regret. At the end of each strike, if your attack did not hit, you may return it to your hand instead of discarding it. Alright, so this is the idea with Hellward Bound, right? Like, if you're completely out of cards, you can play Hellward Bound for free, miss, and return it to your hands. And the whole time, you're daring your opponent to come closer, saying, hey, if you decide to come over here, I have this attack that will blow you up. But if you don't come over here, I'll just strike with every turn, and you'll eventually run out of cards. This also is just overall amazing value, because it means you can play cross at range to retreat, and then keep your cross. And if you get stunned out of something, you can go, I kind of wanted that, and pick it back up. Somebody spikes your focus, that's fine, you still have focus. It's really good. Now let's look at the attack. 1, 2, 3, 5. No movement on the no before movement, so it's under curve, so it's a mid speed, and that checks out because it has after advance as far as possible, so it will beat sweep and focus because it goes faster and it dodges them. So pretty decent mid speed. Doesn't do much damage, but like 5 is fast for a mid speed, so that's not bad. And then hit, shuffle your discard pile into your deck and gain advantage. Okay, great. So this is I'm out of here, and you remember how this caused him to discard cards from his deck? Well, he can put them back in his deck now. This helps keep him from running himself out of cards when he's running both players out of cards. Gaining advantage means that now he's set up at long range to do whatever it is he needs to do next. Maybe play a certain long range attack. This is great. The transformation is important enough that he probably can't afford not to transform it. So he's really not going to be playing too many copies of the attack, except that he can recur stuff, so who the heck knows. But yeah, I would not characterize this attack or this transformation as being essential, but they're certainly useful. Like, both sides of this are really, really valuable in helping him be safe, right? Like, he can be really risky with stuff like Hellward Bound or his character ability. This transformation and this hit effect are both things that let him be a lot safer when he's using those high-risk tools. So Barnstorming helps keep him under control, at least in theory. Alright, so Flight 13. So Flight 13 is like the obvious follow-up to Barnstorming, right? You hit it at close range, you're now at long range, so, you know, chuck a flame at them. Range 5 to 7. That's really awkward. 3, 4. Okay, so it's not even fast as projectiles go. And then before, you may discard up to 3 cards from the top of your deck. For each card discarded this way, retreat 1. Alright, so it has retreat up to 3, functionally. As long as you have the deck for it, which, you know, you probably do. So this actually hits at ranges, what? 2 through 7? Yeah, because at 2 you can retreat to 5. As long as you've got room for it, right? Which makes it a lot better. Because now its primary defining feature is it has all the range. Provided you have room to retreat, again. So, looking at the board for a moment, if he's here, this is range 5. Which means this card has the property of 2, 3, 4, 5. Hitting the other side of the board. Right? It never hits center space. It always hits beyond center space. So he's going to hit 3 spaces on the other side of the board. Which 3 depends exactly where he's standing. You can now go back to looking at this as a power budget graph instead of being the actual board. Alright. As an attack, this is extremely underwhelming. It doesn't even do much damage. It's like you're discarding cards to back yourself up, but you don't have any other range stuff to follow up with, at least not at extreme range. What's the point of it? Well, here's the transformation. Before you set cards for a strike, so that works on offense or defense, because it's before setting, not when you initiate, you may seal up to 4 cards from your discard pile or gauge. That's an ending combination. For every 2 cards sealed this way, draw a card. Okay. Card draw is good. Sealing is really important, because, as we've seen, he can recur stuff, and this is action compression, right? If your opponent strikes, you can seal some cards, and this is not from the top of your discard pile. This is from your discard pile. So there are any cards that you need to have sealed, and you can do it without taking your turn to do it, or having to dig down through your discard pile per your character ability, sealing from the top. So that decision over I can seal whatever I want from my discard or my gauge, far more important than the fact that you can draw cards from it. In fact, arguably, drawing cards is the drawback, because, no pun intended, it can force you to dig through your deck faster than you want. You don't want to go through your reshuffle at the wrong time with Minato, because of how quickly he can run himself out of cards, because he removes a bunch of them from the game by sealing them. Alright, this is an extremely good transformation. Sealing stuff selectively instead of having to seal everything willy-nilly, you know, in whatever order, in the reverse order that enters your discard pile, that's really good. I would say that's actually better than his character ability, even though his character ability generates infinite resources, because we're going to see more and more. He interacts with the sealed area more than just, oh, I needed to pay a cost, so I sealed some stuff. So being able to seal stuff selectively lets him use those interactions and capitalize on them more efficiently. Speaking of dumb interactions with the sealed area, check this transformation, Fractured Memories. When you reveal your attack, if a copy of your attack is in your sealed or transformation area, it is considered an EX attack. This is real good. So this means, especially in combination with this transformation, that you can go, I have an assault in hand, I have an assault in my discard pile. Before I set my attack, I seal it, draw nothing, I just seal 1 card, then strike, and now I have an EX assault. These two together give you basically at-will EXs, as long as you have enough in your discard or gauge to fuel them. And then later in the game, you don't even have to use this part. You can just rely on this, because you've got a bunch of stuff sealed. Whew. That is really, really good. What's in the other half of this? 1 to 2, 4, 3, 5. Hit, push 2, then you spin up to 2 force, reach 4, spin, plus 1 power. So this goes up to power 6, and it pushes 2. That's basically what this says. So at range 2, that beats Sweep. And then, other than that, loses to Grasp, trades with Assaults and sometimes Dive. It's kind of odd. Loses to Spike on defense. Trades with Focus. So this is a slow attack that is specifically a mid-speed against Sweep, right? Like, and against Spike, it is... if you initiate with it, it can beat Spike at range 2. So this is a bunch of odd interactions because of what stat line it's at, right? 1, 2, 4, 3. Well, 1, 2, and then speed 3 specifically with 5 guard. But I would say generally this is a slow attack. Even though it loses grasp, even though it can beat sweep, it still qualifies as being a slow attack. It's just one with a few unusual interactions. Not really remarkable. You know, 6 damage, okay, that's good. 6 damage at speed 3, yeah, that's good. Doesn't hit any important breakpoints though. So, not all that important. Transformation obviously far better. And notably, because this transformation is so good, it's important that the attack is below curve. In fact, you'll note that he doesn't have above curve transformation cards. He has to actually work to land these. Flight 13, you just want to play it when it's guaranteed because you're on the far side of the board. Barnstorming, you need to either EX or boost light because that is a mid-speed. Bus Stop, you need some speed, or, you know, have the opponent trapped in the corner and unable to dive or something. I'm not sure. It's hard to secure these transformations. You're going to be relying on your character ability and your recursion tools to collect both copies and transform them from hand a lot of the time. How good is this? Probably about as good as Flight 13 in terms of the transformation. These are probably right on par with each other. Actually, I'm gonna go to this one next. Nah, we'll save that for last. Jump the chart. 3 to 4, 2, 6. That's great. That is 2 points above curve at range 4. 1 point above curve at range 3. So above curve, meaning it's probably defensive. 2 damage, meaning it does not stun EX attacks, which is actually super important. And then hit +1 power for every 4 cards in your sealed area, max of +5. Oh, well, that hit effect means this can actually ratchet up in power pretty quickly to being potentially power 7 or 8 if EX, which is completely insane, right? However, to do that at maximum, you have to have, 20 cards in your sealed area, which means you're not working with a whole lot left. So, probably won't get there very often. The important feature of this card is it's very, very fast, right? Like, that is the primary feature of this attack. So it's designed to, you know, stuff offensive dives or even most fast dives, because fast dives are usually just speed 5. This is a defensive tool. It's kind of an anti-projectile projectile. It's a little bit like improvised weapon, excuse me, in Carl Swangy's kit, where you just kind of poke them to stun them out of doing a speed 4 or 5 attack. Yeah, that's its main usage. It's also good at closing games, just because fast cards that can do a lot of damage in late game are, by nature, really good closers. Yeah. Like, all that said, I don't think the attack is a huge part of his power budget, because as you've seen all of these interactions, it seems like he's going to, like, lean into having EXs, or automatic EXs, for late game power, and then he just relies on being able to manipulate resources and have the right cards at the right time, such that he doesn't need a lot of attacks that do a lot of really good things as attacks. He just needs a few tools, and then he's going to use a bunch of these little card game engine pieces to make sure that he has what he needs when he needs it. He'll play a lot of normals, honestly. As for the boost, Jump the Train is just move 4, 1 force. I mean, that's good, but he already has a ton of, you know, resource generation because of his character ability, so it's really not important. I would actually rate this more important than this. This transformation, like I said, this whole card is for safety. It's nice. It's valuable. It's not essential. Neither is Jump the Shark. Good cards. Not really comparable to the rest of this. All right, Streetcar. 1 of 3, 10-4. Well, that sure is 10 power. 3 gauge, no text. This quote is kind of famous. It's actually well, at least a version of this quote is the cover image for this module, if I recall correctly. So, it's a mid-speed. It's a big mid-speed. You know, it's under curve, but it does 10 damage, so it just destroys anything slower than it. Remember that because of this transformation, this might just be EX'd whenever you play it, because you can either seal something at will, or you can seal your discard pile to generate gauge, making it EX just at the time that you play it, because of your character ability, right? Like, you seal 3 cards from your discard pile to generate 1 gauge. If one of those cards is Streetcar, well, now it's in your sealed area, so your Streetcar is EX, which means this becomes on curve 11 damage, which is unholy. Like, holy cow. Let's look at this boost. Seal up to 4 cards from top of your deck. For each card sealed, display +1 speed. Okay, well, remember how I said that he needed some sort of speed boost to land his transformations? See me. He's got it. And because of the seal stuff, that actually makes it easier for him to recur them if he seals something that he needs. So this is kind of a, like, put 4 cards from your deck into this area of cards that you will be able to recur. It is possible for it to screw him up if he somehow seals both of this and both of this. You know, if he seals 2 capstans, 2 Hellward Bounds, he can't recur anything anymore. Like, that's it. His whole engine shuts down. But the chances of that happening are so infinitesimally low, I don't think it's even really worth considering. He'll need 1 copy of one of these cards to be able to recover from sealing all 3 other copies of, you know, those 2 cards combined. On curve 11 damage, we have not seen anything even remotely comparable to this, right? Like, Jump the Shark can hit big numbers, but it hits big numbers in late game, and it hits those numbers when you don't have anything left. Like, you have to have a bunch of stuff sealed to hit those big numbers. So this is a great closer. This is probably a better one. It loses to Cross, but so what? You know, if you miss, you can still return it to your hands. And as long as you are, you know, patient and cautious with your capstand, and especially if you're in Exceed mode and you have capstands, you'll be able to return stuff to pay for things. Note that if you're in Exceed, by the way, you don't have the free gauge thing, right? Like, you have to actually pay gauge for stuff. You can't just seal stuff to generate gauge. So Streetcar is actually harder to play in Exceed mode. In normal mode, it's much easier to play because you can seal stuff from your discard pile to generate the gauge, which is a big deal. Yeah, that's a little bit interesting. Because, like, you'd think it'd be easier to play in Exceed mode. Hellward Bound's easier to play in Exceed mode, but Streetcar is clearly the better card. Like, it's obviously stronger. Yeah, I actually do think this is the strongest card in this kit then. Like, it's the card that actually destroys the opponent, whereas all of this shenanigans is like you have an engine with a lot of interlocking pieces, you manipulate resources, you do a bunch of shenanigans, and there's a lot of great tools here, but it's on you to find the win condition, right? Like, your main win condition is going to be kill the opponent, right? Running them out of the cards is a thing that he can do, but it takes a concerted effort to do it. Like, you have to land your Barnstormings, you have to play your Hellraisers, you have to know when you can play things and when you need to not play things because you're going to run too low on deck. You need to know what is okay to seal and when to seal it. That's all very hard. Playing an on-curve 11 damage attack, not that hard. So, you know, just do that a couple times. Alright. Yeah, that's Minato. At least my thoughts on him.